Let's see. I'm to the point where I'm getting really close to putting some power to some stuff. I want to, like I said, I've already put oil in the motor. I'm going to go ahead and put some, as soon as I mount this reservoir, I'm going to put power steering fluid in, make sure it's all pipe tight. I'm also need to put in transmission fluid, make sure it's pipe tight. Yeah, I'm about to the point where I'm going to stick a battery in this thing and start firing things up and seeing where all the smoke comes out. I'm actually debating on pulling all my spark plugs out. That way, pull my fuse for the fuel pump. That way I can roll this thing over with the starter a few times, see if I can get some good oil pressure. After that, first verify good oil pressure. I guess I would probably end up pulling my my gas supply off this rail, just taking it to a bucket, put a couple gallons in my fuel tank, and just kind of flush the lines out from everywhere that I've done the cutting of the tubing as well as these rubber lines. After that, I can hook that supply line back up, and I will pull my return line off, stick it in the same bucket, make sure it's supplying fuel rails, get everything up into the fuel rails and through the recirc through this hose and into the bucket. After that, then I can go ahead and hook it back up, do it a few more times, and recirc all the way to the tank. And we'll see see how many leaks I got then. Like I said, it's been kind of a heyday. I'm just scattered everywhere. I'm just doing the old shotgun method and doing anything and everything, bouncing here and there. All right, so got a little battery charger, got the battery installed, everything wired up here. I do not have the fuse installed in the for the fuel pump. Right now I've only got 2 fuses installed. The top one is battery power to the PCM. The bottom left one is power to the PCM through ignition circuit. So it's got battery, and when you turn the key on, it's got ignition. I've got fluid in all the parts that should have fluid. I lied. I don't have any coolant. I'm not worried about that. I'm not putting a fire in it. I do have oil. I've got transmission fluid. I did put some in the power steering. I'm trying to think. Alright, so right now my goal is going to be, and this is going to be a big crapshoot, but what I'm going to attempt to do is go ahead and turn this motor over a few times, crank it. I do have 6 of the 8 plugs removed just to make it easier to roll over. So I do have a mechanical gauge set up. That's all I'm really trying to do is build some oil pressure. There's a VATS system, vehicle anti-theft system, I believe, with this. I have done nothing with it, so if this thing actually rolls over, actually it's going to be a miracle. So like I said, small little baby steps. Let's see what we can do. All right. Oh, and that's also pretty friggin' annoying. Let's see what happens. Nothing. Well, let's go to the drawings. Alright, so that was it. It was that little VATS system, VATS. What that is vehicle anti-theft. There, I just bypassed it. There's a little relay right here that I did a little research, and something about something with your key. Has a little something to make it not start. There, this is the bypass around it. So right now it's bypassing that VAT system, completing the circuit. I'll make this up a little bit more permanent. Right now I just did it to do it. And I'm not gonna lie, I've already bumped it one time. So got a shitty battery. Oh my lord, I'm gonna find that thing. Not really sure how long I need to be cranking this thing for. I don't want to burn up the starter motor. I did end up putting my battery charger on all night, left it on. I pulled my little pressure gauge off of this tube, and I was hoping to be able to just see some oil start pushing up into this tubing, just to verify I got oil pressure, some oil flowing. So right now I don't even know if I'm getting good oil flow. Not sure how long I need to crank this to be able to get good oil pressure. I would have thought some of these air bubbles would have started coming out of this by now. It was easier on that one. That one I just pulled a distributor out and stuck a drill onto the oil pump. It's all mechanical there that you can put a drill motor on. That way I was able to prime that one to start. This one right here, I'm not quite sure how to tell when I got oil pressure. I got it to turn over. That was my goal. Actually, I guess my goal was to turn over with oil pressure, but one thing I did last night after the first initial crank on this thing was, after I got done and went inside, I went ahead and ordered HP Tuners little MVPI or MPVI, whatever it's called, the little interface module that goes into your OBD2 part, OBDT, I don't know what the hell it's called, that plastic piece that plugs in under that I had to wire up a new one on. One of these, OBDT, whatever. Software is free evidently, but to buy the interface to talk to those 4 wires, which 2 of them are grounds, so, and the licensing. So anyways, I ended up buying that stuff last night, so give it a couple days to ship. First thing I did was I wanted to come in here and make sure that right there is still from my transmission pan, so pay no attention to that. I wanted to see if I'd actually made any oil pressure to my filter. I was going to actually pull the filter off and pre-fill it. I mean, you can see the mess I'm starting to make here. So I had the oil filter full. Dry cranking, see if I can get any pressure coming out of that hose. That hose comes off of this filter. That little cap right there went to the stock oil cooler lines. Well, you can buy one of these little caps right there, more or less delete them cooling lines. Well, what I did was I drilled and tapped the top of it and stuck that little 1/8 inch NPT fitting and little hose tubing on it, run it up. And I should start getting some oil pressure coming out of this hose right here in my little jug. And we'll see what happens. I'll give it a couple more cranks. Alright, I got my little recirc set up. Here's my supply hose coming from the tank. Going right back into my bucket here, so I'm going to just flush. Yeah, the bucket's nasty, I don't care. All I'm trying to do is run all this nasty gook out of the hose from me. All the gook that's in these hoses from me cutting and making hoses, and from me cutting these lines. Turn this damn radio off. Quite a bit done to the fuel system, so pulled the supply hose off of there, put it in the bucket, trying to start it and prime the pump. I put 5 gallons in here. I don't have a puddle underneath. Actually, my fuel gauge did move. So right now it does show 5 gallons got me a little over a quarter. I would have thought just by turning it to this position, I would have started priming. Yeah, it's not running. So let me double check that. I did put the fuse in back there. Alright, so what I found back here for this fuel pump, this is where I tap off. There's the fuse for my fuel pump. Goes through this relay. From here, I got a trigger wire. This is what's coming from the computer, telling it to turn on. And coming off of this pin right here is this pump. I was never getting voltage on this thing telling the pump to turn on. I pulled this off and took it straight to the battery post. Arky Sparky pump started. That was this relay right here. Did a check on it and I could not get any voltage on this this output pin right here, so this relay was bad. Had another relay, so I pulled this one out, wired it all up, put my pump on there as well. Tried another start with a key and still no fuel pump. Come out here and looked, and everything's working on this thing as far as the power to the output of the pin for the pump. It's this trigger. For whatever reason, the computer's not telling this pump to start. But me being me, I was impatient. I was like, screw it, I'm ready to flush this. So all I did was pull this this pump lead off, took it to the post, the positive post of the battery, and started flushing. Pump ran. See, I got a bunch of gas in there now. Now remember, this jug was nasty to start with, so you see all that shit in there. That's not just from these lines or the gas tank. But one thing I did find was this fitting was loose. I went ahead and snugged it back up. And you'll notice right here, I've already pulled the recirc back to the tank. I pulled that hose off. It comes off of here. This fuel rail right here comes off of this recirc line after this this little regulator, and it recircs off of that line through the hose and back to the tank via this fitting right here. So I pulled that off, stuck it in the bucket. So now I should be pressurizing everything up to the fuel rails, through the regulator hose and back into the bucket. All right, y'all, let's check this out. You hear it? If I can get this damn buzzard. Yep. Got it to work. I'm a dumbass. I wired it up wrong. My whole premise of how the LS computer triggers things was backwards. I kept coming back here and I kept seeing 12 volts on this trigger wire, which is coming from the computer. So I'm like, well, I'm supplying, I had 12 volts going through here. I'm like, well, it's passing through, but it's not going to ground, because that's what I thought the LS computer does. I thought it triggers on the ground, which completes a circuit. Well, evidently, I finally pulled this wire off, hooked it to my meter there. With it pulled off and the key in the on, start, run position, my trigger wire had 12 volts. If it was switching the ground, you still wouldn't have any voltage present. So that was telling me that the computer is actually supplying the 12 volt to the fuel pump relay to start. So all I did was I put the trigger wire back on, treated it as the 12 volt supply, pulled my 12 volts that I had supplying voltage to it, pulled it off, and just jammed the ground. And you can see where I just jammed it right into the negative side of the terminal there, just as a test. So now when I go to on, start, run, whatever, the fuel pump, the computer triggers the relay to pick up. That's what sends my 12 volts to the fuel pump. So that first relay, I may have smoked it, having it wired backwards. That other relay's bad. This relay's still working. I'm gonna pretty this, make this all look better, and we'll move on to the next thing. Looks like this, with me constantly turning this over, got the pump going on the transmission, and looks like it pushed it out of the tail housing, the tail shaft housing. That's where I see it dripping from. So I'll go ahead and clean this mess up. Go ahead and I pulled the drive shaft out, the old one that I got with the motor, the old one that I got with the transmission, and I'll pull the slip yoke apart and slide it up in there, and we'll see if that plugs the leak. Well, I had fire. I think I'm gonna have to wait till I get a computer to find out what's holding me out from staying lit. It tried to light off. Alright, so we're going to try this again. The only thing I did different was I now have the HP Tuners program and was able to turn VATs off, which is a vehicle anti-theft. So I just got done with that. Good deal. Able to start it. It stayed running. It took me a while. I actually ended up, I had to pump the accelerator a little bit just to get the intake open, I guess. So I'll have to work on obviously tuning on the idle. Got the big step done. Stayed lit, stayed running. Now let me dig around and see if I can keep it running, at least in idle. Excellent, good deal. So a recap from yesterday. We finally got this thing lit off. Took a little bit of getting into the HP Tuners program and turning VATs off, the vehicle anti-theft system. That's the only thing that was holding it out. Still gave me a couple little hiccups on startup, and that was all it required me was to kind of crack open the throttle. Good Lord. So I guess I'm going to end up having to do some research on that for just plain old idle tuning in the HP Tuners. Biggest thing that, I don't know if the video, I know your video don't show it, but we actually had 50 pounds of pressure. So that was a big thing. I wanted to make sure we had good oil pressure. Climbed all the way up to 50 psi, so that was good. Things coming up. What's next? Like I said, got to work on this idle. That'll take a little while. I got to finish up my coolant system here. I already got an upper hose. I just don't have it mounted. I don't have any coolant in it yet. I got a fan right here. Going to have to work on trying to get it mounted up in here. I don't have a drive shaft. That's another thing that I'm going to end up having to start working on. Number one is next on my list, idle tuning, coolant system with the cooling fan. Try to repair some of these leaks with on my transmission, whether it's the transmission pan and that fitting. We'll see what pops up. I know there's other stuff. I just can't think right now. I'm still kind of jacked up about getting this thing turned over and running. Next step, like I said, let's get the thing idling on its own. All right, that's it for now. Let me get started on some of these other smaller stuff.